digga doom doom doom. Doom digga doom doom doom. Doom digga doom 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 doom. Doom digga 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 doom 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 doom. Doom digga 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 doom doom doom. The river is a healer. The river is a sage. The river knows no end, and the river feels no age. The river is a leader every single day. It's living in the moment, and it always finds a way. Water, heal my body. Water, heal my soul. When I go down to the water, by the water I feel whole. River calls me over, calling out my name. In the day and in the night, I hear it all the same. Calling me over, calling out my pain. Oh, a river gathers tears like a river gathers rain. Water, heal my body. Water, heal my soul. When I go down to the water, by the water I feel whole. Water, heal my body. Water, heal my soul. When I go down to the water, by the water I feel whole. River is a traveler, always on the go. And the river never worries if it's fast or if it's slow. River, take me where I need to go. Oh, and I will just relax and let that river flow. Water, heal my body. Water, heal my soul. When I go down to the water, by the water I feel whole. Water, heal my body. Water, heal my soul. When I go down to the water, by the water I feel whole. Water, 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 heal my soul. When I go down to the water, by the water I feel whole. Water, heal my body. Water, heal my soul. When I go down to the water, by the water I feel whole. Water, heal my body. Water, heal my soul. When I go down to the water, by the water I feel whole.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder on this wonderful water communion morning. Hello, my name is Fred Cole, and I'm pleased to be the worship leader for this morning's service. We welcome all to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder. All are welcome, and all of you are sacred. Whatever your past was like, whatever this present moment is like for you, we invite you on this journey into the future together. And welcome to those who are joining us via the magic of the internet. If you're a new or online visitor, please email our office administrator, Amy Zen, and let us know how you found us. You'll also find her email listed in the Zoom chat. And our church website has a great deal of information about UUCB, our programs, and our other activities. And now, please ensure that your microphones remain muted as you join with us and the others for worship.
Friends, come in. Come into this place which we make holy by our presence. Come in with all your vulnerabilities and strengths and your fears and anxieties and loves and hopes. Come in, for here you need not hide, nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where we can heal and be healed, where we can forgive and be forgiven. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, and the compassionate is expected. Come into this place. Together, we make it a holy place. Let me tell you a story about a stream. I was up in the hills yesterday, putting my feet and fingers for the very first time into one of these very cold streams that comes down from the mountains, and watching the volume of water move quickly, rush past and over the rocks and down and onwards. Our story starts with a stream just like that, rushing down. A stream from its far off course in the mountains passed through every kind and description of countryside, until at last it reached the sands of the desert. And just as it had crossed every other barrier, just as it had gone over boulders and around tree roots, it tried to cross this one. But it found that as fast as it ran into the sand, the water disappeared. It was convinced that its destiny was to cross the desert, but there was no way to do it. And it flung wave after wave of itself into the sand until a hidden voice coming from the desert itself, because this is the sort of story where streams have plans and deserts speak, a hidden voice coming from the desert said, "The wind crosses the desert. The wind crosses the desert, and so can the stream." Well, the stream objected, explained, clarified that it was dashing itself against the sand and just getting absorbed, but the wind can fly. That's what makes it wind. That's why it can cross a desert. But the desert spoke to it again. The desert said, listen, by hurtling yourself onwards in your accustomed way, by pushing into the sand like you're used to, of course you can't get across. You can't do more of the same and expect different results. You'll either disappear or you'll become a marsh. You must allow the wind to carry you over to your destination. But the stream is skeptical. The stream says, how does this gonna work? The desert says, listen, by allowing yourself to be absorbed into the wind, you can get across. But this idea was not acceptable to the stream. It had never been absorbed by the wind before that it could remember. It didn't want to lose its individuality. It didn't want to lose its identity if who it was a stream rushing all together. Once it cast itself into the wind, who knows if it could ever find itself on the far side? The wind, said the sand. The wind does this. It takes up water. It carries it over the desert and it lets it fall again. And as rain, the water becomes a river. Yeah, how can I know this is true? Said the river. It's so, said the desert. And if you don't believe it, you may not become anything more than a quagmire. And even that could take many years. And it's certainly not the same as a stream. You won't remain the same stream you are today in any case. But in the wind, your essential parts can be carried away and form a stream again. When it heard this, certain echoes began to arise in the thoughts of the stream, and dimly it remembered a state in which it or some part of it had been held in the arms of the wind. And it remembered, maybe, that this was the real thing. This was the necessary thing. This was the natural thing, even if not necessarily the obvious thing to do. To remain itself, to continue its journey, it had to change. And the steam raised its vapors into the welcoming arms of the wind, which bore it gently and easily upwards and along, letting it fall softly as soon as they reached the roof of a mountain many, many miles away. And because it had its doubts in the process, the stream was able to remember and record more strongly in its mind the details of the experience. And it reflected, yes, Now that I have cast myself into the wind and fallen back down again, now I know my real identity.
We now invite all of those gathered in your various locations to join us in fellowship and community as we say aloud our congregation's covenant. Please repeat each line after me. We gather in fellowship to speak truth to each other,
We gather in fellowship to speak truth to each other,
to reach out and touch one another,
to reach out and touch one another,
to care with each other,
to care with each other,
and to seek the truth divine.
and to seek the truth divine.
So be it.
So be it.
May it be so. And if you're joining us online and have a candle or a chalice near your computer, please get ready to light it. We invite you to type into the chat box where your chalice is being lit, the street or neighborhood, or what city if you're joining us from beyond Boulder County. I'd like to invite Deborah Barioli to light this morning's chalice. Deborah?
Good morning. Oh, this is very powerful. I light this morning's chalice in honor of the spirit of music, which holds us together in beloved community. The famous quote by Howard Thurman comes to mind. Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Music brings us alive, and the world needs music now more than ever. During these trying times, we feel the void in our lives that was once filled with either participating directly in music making or attending performances. We begin to realize just how vital this gift is, especially when it comes to singing together here at UUCB, which sadly we are once again advised to refrain from doing for the safety of us all and our health. So we thank you for understanding. Well, my friend and longtime chancel choir member, Alan Davis, said to me a couple of weeks ago after service, Deborah, we appreciate you keeping us from singing. And I said, well, Alan, that's my job. But as funny as my attempt was to turn that around in the spirit of humor, that truth remains, that making music in community is essential to how we experience worship, togetherness, and expression. The opportunity to turn this around presents itself nonetheless. Our singers and instrumentalists here have learned many new ways of making music together. And since being able to come back in person, we have relished the times of rehearsing, setting up tons of equipment, and thanks to all who are doing that and making that possible, and enjoying the opportunity to create music together in the moment, music as a living experience that shifts and moves and reaches out in one unified sound and one unified voice. So thank you to our Chancel Cats band and our AV people, our sound tech folks. We just thank you all so much for helping us bring all of this wonderful music to you and your worship experience. So even though we're not able to sing together, I invite you to open your ideas and open your mind and your hearts to a different way of experiencing the music. And just let yourself go and meditate on the sound. And close your eyes and open your ears and your hearts to the subtleties and nuances that maybe you've missed before. And perhaps that may allow you to go deeper than thought possible. So I light this morning's chalice for our music ministry here at UUCB.
Amanda, you join us, please. It's kind of a sad day. It's sort of a sad day because this is the day that we're having to say goodbye to Amanda as she goes off into the world. Lost my page here. Now, some Unitarian congregations, primarily those that are old line churches, have a tradition of presenting a Jefferson Cup in recognition of special efforts or outstanding contributions either to their community or to the Unitarian Universalist movement. I'll not go into the interesting story that lies behind the Jefferson Cup, but I will repost the article that I wrote about it in this week's Messenger. Now, for some churches like First Universalist in Denver, the presentation of a Jefferson Cup is an annual event. And for others, it is done when a notable occasion arises. And this morning, we certainly have a notable occasion, right? Amanda, you've been truly a blessing for UUCB and to all of us for these past 8 years. Your instrument or instruments have brought so many moments of beauty and joy to this congregation. It is truly an honor and my pleasure to be able to present to you this Jefferson Cup on behalf of all the members and friends of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder. And with this token goes our fondest affection and our most sincere wishes for your future success and for Sam's. We're going to miss that laughing guitar. Yeah.
Says Amanda Williams, with our gratitude, UU Church of Boulder, September 12th, 2021.
Blessed be.
'We know that joy and sorrow are woven together. We know this in celebrating and appreciating you, even as we're grieving over losing you after all these years. Delighted for the next step in your career and life, even as we try and figure out what we're going to do without you. Friends, will you take a breath with me? And another. "20 years ago yesterday in New York City, the sky was gloriously blue and bright. A friend said, talking about the whole event and the history since, I just cannot not cry. Something about that moment of collective realization of what was happening. The instinct to say, I love you, and then working together to ensure the least harm was caused just really gets me even still. Loss and pain and the blindsiding fact that upends your world and breaks your heart are real and present and pose a question before us of what we are to do when unexpected and unthinkable tragedy intrudes. We can harden our hearts. We can build a shell around ourselves. We can throw ourselves into work or effort. We can get so angry that we don't feel wounded or try to hurt another, to scapegoat. But loss and heartbreak are what connect us to each other. the instinct to say, I love you, and then working together to ensure the least harm is caused. Toni Morrison wrote these words 2 days after the attacks, this called The Dead of September 11th. And I invite you to receive them as words for meditation and reflection this morning. She writes, some have God's words, others have songs of comfort for the bereaved. If I can pluck courage here, I would like to speak directly to the dead, the September dead. Those children of ancestors born in every continent on the planet, Asia, Europe, Africa, the Americas, born of ancestors who wore kilts, obis, saris, geles, wide straw hats, yarmulkes, goatskin, wooden shoes, feather and cloth. But I would not say a word. I would not say a word until I could set aside all I knew or believed about nations, war, leaders, the governed and ungovernable, all I suspect about armor and entrails first. First, I would freshen my tongue, abandon sentences crafted to know evil. Abandon sentences crafted to know evil, wanton or studied, explosive or quietly sinister, whether born of sated appetite or hunger, of vengeance, or the simple compulsion to stand up before falling down. I would purge my language of hyperbole, of its eagerness to analyze the levels of wickedness, ranking them, calculating their higher or lower status among others of its kind. Speaking to the broken and the dead is too difficult for a mouthful of blood, too holy an act for impure thoughts. Because the dead are free, absolute. They cannot be seduced by blitz. To speak to you, the dead of September, I must not claim false intimacy or summon an overheated heart glazed just in time for the camera. I must be steady and I must be clear, knowing all the time that I have nothing to say. No word stronger than the steel that you pressed yourself into. No scripture older or more elegant than the atoms you have become. And I have nothing to give either, except this gesture, this thread thrown between your humanity and mine. I want to hold you in my arms. And as your soul got shot of its box of flesh to understand, as you have done, the wit of eternity, its gift of release, tearing through the darkness of its knell. We'll be together in silence for 7 breaths. Amen. We are a people who commit ourselves not to travel through this world alone, who against all the calls of culture, all the incentives of advancement, we gather in this house to set down in some way, even for some moment, the masks that we too often wear to face the world. We gather in this moment, even in silence, to set down the lie that everything is fine, we're fine, how are you? We gather in this moment to remember that each of us are people carrying with us all the joy and the difficulty of our days. We're people struggling and a people hoping. And at this moment in the service of blessings and concerns, we enact that ritually together. This table in front of me has a tray and two bowls, a tray filled with ordinary, extraordinary dirt, the stuff of this land, sacred earth of the Ute and Arapaho peoples. And the bowl with stones from Boulder Creek, little pieces of mountain tumbled over each other, rough edges smoothed, maybe like ours a little bit by time and motion. And in just a moment, for those meeting together in person, as the music begins, I invite you to come forward as you feel moved and silently take a stone and place it in the earth to symbolize your joys and cares taking their place in the larger whole, in all of those of the community together, held in the hand of the earth. You'll come up again in a few minutes for our water ceremony. So if you mistrust your steps or the ground, I'll invite you to sit this out. And for those gathering online, I'll invite you to share in the chat any joys or sorrows that you carry with you this morning.
As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, sisters, let's go down, come on down. Oh, sisters, let's go down to the river to pray. As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the robe and crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, brothers, let's go down, come on down. Come on, brothers, let's go down to the river to pray. As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, fathers, let's go down, come on down. Oh, fathers, let's go down to the river to pray. As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the robe and crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, mothers, let's go down, come on down, don't you want to go down? Come on, mothers, let's go down to the river to pray. As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, sinners, let's go down, come on down. Oh, sinners, let's go down to the river to pray.
As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown, good Lord, show me the way.
To the stones that you've placed, we add these cares and joys. We send love and hope and solidarity to Barbara Mulfazy, who's recovering from a knee replacement a week ago. Doing well, but that first week is always rough. This morning, we remember Gregory Klassen, whose dad passed away this week. He says, "I loved that man. He taught me so much." Janet Salmon sends joy in the face of concern for a dear friend battling a difficult cancer. We extend blessings to Ingrid and her family. And we extend care and concern for all those joys and all those sorrows unsaid. Amen. As living beings, we draw sustenance from many wells, from oceans and ponds and snowmelt and thunderstorms, from faraway places and the puddles in our own backyards. Yet every bit is refreshing, every rivulet is cleansing, every drop is capable of nurturing, of sustaining life. There is no drop of water in this world which does not have life in it. As people of faith, we draw sustenance from many sources, from earth and sky, from poetry and legend and art and music, from words well said, and from conscience written on our own hearts. Each of these sources satisfies, quenches in some small part our deep thirst for meaning, and reinforces a yearning for justice that will roll down like waters, a yearning that starts inside our own soul before we make it real in the world. One of the meanings for the word communion is united in a common fellowship, joined together as one people. A drop of water alone has no color, it's clear, it's almost invisible, but in combination, many drops together can create a rainbow, unseen realities made present. Together, we aspire to represent that full spectrum of humanity. We aspire to make love and justice and hope visible on earth, unseen realities present. Therefore, on this Water Communion Sunday, we remember, we work to remember, we practice remembering who we are and what we are about. Just as water exists individually in molecules and droplets and collectively, lakes and oceans and streams, we are united as individuals into a living tradition that flows through this space and flows through time. In just a moment, each of us will pour a small amount of water, brought with you from summer travels or a wild source maybe, or from the kitchen faucet, or from the pitcher on the table here in front. Bringing this water and merging it together symbolizes our fellowship. We come from many sources. We're young and old, we're new to this congregation and longtime members. This mingled water is made sacred by the many hands, by your hands who pour it with intention and love, made sacred by the stories that each drop contains, made sacred by the many lives surrounding it in this unique moment, connected by commitment and faith. We can't all gather together in person today. We can't all be here physically for this annual ritual. We have transformed into a community that gathers in person and virtually every Sunday. And depending on how things go, we may transform back virtually again and back in person again. Like the river crossing the desert, we've changed our form. We've cast ourselves into the wind, individual droplets, trusting that we're still part of the whole, trusting that the essence of what makes us a community isn't sitting together every Sunday inside that building, but the connection and the relationship that we have with each other outside and masked and distanced, across electrons and space, virtually, trusting that we are still part of the whole, trusting we will condense and be a river on the far side of this journey. Trusting that the essence of us is to be a journeying people, whatever form and shape that takes over time. For those who are joining online, as the music begins and folks here come forward, let it wash over you. Watch this water poured. Close your eyes. Feel the rush of waters around you. And for those joining in person, I invite you now to come forward and make a line, and in silence all together as the music begins, each to pour a drop of water into the container together.
This vessel now holds 41 years worth of our gathered waters. And we dug through the archives, and although we couldn't quite pinpoint the exact date, it's clear that this water ritual has been performed here at UUCB for over 40 years. This saved water will be boiled and filtered and made ready to be used for other rituals, such as the child dedication, when we welcome a new life into the community. And of course, it'll be used to begin the water ceremony for next year. In a moment, Reverend David will pour part of this 41 years of history into a vase for today. And let us give a thanks for our Unitarian and Universalist ancestors, the people who have helped build this community and spread Unitarian Universalism in the world. And immediately after this service, I'm inviting all the children, all the youth to join me, and we'll carry this smaller vase around the corner and into the meditation garden. And that's where we'll pour it out as a symbol of our commitment to respecting the earth and creating peace in the world. Well, all of you are welcome to join us, not just the kids. Thank you.
The young or the formerly. We opened this service by declaring this space is made holy by your presence, that it's made holy. There's nothing inherent, but we see it, we witness it, we bring that intention and awareness into it. So too is this water blessed by your intention, given meaning, given weight that can't be measured. So friends, we will close this ritual blessing the water together. I'll begin. If you'll respond all together, this water is sacred. This water is made sacred by the many hands that have poured it with intention and love, the many stories that each drop contain, the many lives surrounding it in this unique moment, connected by commitment and faith. This water is sacred. May it continue to flow through this community with shining reflections of the unique gifts that flow through each of its members. May it continue to nurture this community with sustaining hope that we journey together through ripples of growth and change, through transformations in state and kind. May it continue to bless this community with loving reminders of our collective responsibility to one another and to the world. May its ripples be a reminder that the changes and growth within this community bring movement and transformation to the world beyond our doors. May its purity offer grace to our community and the willingness to forgive ourselves and another when we make mistakes. In the moments when the reservoirs of hearts and spirits are drained by sorrow or pain or simply long time difficulty, may it nourish them, may it nourish us with the knowledge that we are surrounded by a deep and an abundant love. This water is made sacred by the many hands who have poured it with intention and love. And here it is, an ordinary thing. On the one hand, a bunch of water in a vase, and on the other hand, a symbol and reminder of our interconnection with each other and with the larger world around us. This water is sacred.
Our share of the plate offering for this month of September we'll be partnering with Rise Against Suicide. And since yesterday marked the end of National Suicide Awareness Week, this is an entirely appropriate. The suicide rate for young people in Colorado has increased 58% in the 3 years from 2016 to 2019. And that was the largest increase registered in the entire United States. Another startling statistic is nearly 20% of high school students have contemplated suicide at one time or another. The often needed mental health counseling is unavailable due to lack of insurance and or the prohibitive cost. And during the last 18 months, COVID-19 has brought additional pressure. With one suicide prevention call line has reported a 9-fold increase in calls. It's straining counselors and increasing the isolation for our young people. The local nonprofit Rise Against Suicide works in the Boulder Valley and the St. Vrain Valley school districts to decrease the incidence of suicide by removing financial and social barriers to the treatment for at-risk youth. So far, during the 2021 school year, RISE has provided 980 counseling sessions to young people. It's nearly a 10% increase from the previous year. This quote is from a parent who used RISE services. My child is struggling with a disability, with depression, and some big life changes, and we tried to find him the necessary therapy to improve his health, but we're dismayed by either the distance, the quality, or the cost. Rise Against Suicide provided the resources for my child to get the help that he needed. Thanks to Rise, he's now much happier and has the tools he needs to face his challenges. For today's offering, please remain seated as you are during the musical interlude which follows, and the ushers will come to you. And for those of you joining us remotely, you can make a donation now using the Breeze link posted in our chat box, or by sending a check to UUCB, or scanning the QR code, which will appear on the next slide. I invite you to give as generously as you are able. The ushers will now accept the offering.
It takes often intention to remember who we are and what we're about, to remember, to reach out, to remember that we're not in it alone, but united together. By partnering with other nonprofits and groups in the community, we make that real in our practice of justice making, that we're not fundamentally each individuals just trying to make the world a better place all on our own, but putting our gifts together, connecting with groups in the community who are doing tangible and direct work that makes a meaningful difference. And in that way, to give away the basket is a piece of the same thing that we do in our water communion each year. Remembering that we're not alone. Remembering that together we are more than what we are as individuals. As water together, as a flowing stream, we can move mountains, reshape landscapes, and remake this world. Our worship ends and our service begins again. Go in peace and amen.
Go your way in peace, wander as you may. Blessed is the path you take, may love guide you on your way.